सोच समाज में, परिवार में, आर्थिकी में, अर्थव्यवस्था में सभी स्थानों पर हमें दिखाई देती है और उसकी वजह से सशक्तिकरण के जो प्रयास हुए हैं उनका पूरा लाभ हमें नहीं मिल सका है। लेकिन आपने ये बहुत आवश्यक बात बताई कि 73rd और 74th अमेंडमेंट्स के बाद जो भारत में साइलेंट रेवोल्यूशन के रूप में जाना जाता है, एक बड़ी क्रांति की शुरुआत हुई है और अवश्य ही इसके परिणाम हम सामने कुछ दिनों में तो अवश्य पाएंगे। थोड़ा बहुत प्रारंभ हो चुका है, बट वी आर स्टिल लुकिंग फॉर अ बेटर फोरम फॉर upcoming women leaders at the assembly as well as at the parliament level. Thank you, sir. Now we open the session for presentations from participants. I have been told that we cannot afford to give more than 5 minutes to each participant. I know it is not enough, but that is the time constraints. So shall I request Dr.
Guest Professor K.D. Swami. Professor K.D. Swami is an eminent economist and has been a professor of economics at Jai Narayan Vyas University, Jodhpur. Presently, he is the Vice Chancellor, Maharaja Surajmal Bridge University, Bharatpur. Professor K.D. Swami has supervised various PhDs and has authorized several books. Also, he has, to his credit, many research papers and articles. He is known for his virtues as a mentor, teacher, leader, and manager. He not only professes the values of Indian culture, but he himself practices many of the fundamental principles of humanity and society, while dedicating himself to the cause of education and research. I request Dr. Aarti Sharma, Organizing Secretary of the seminar, to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Namaskar. Professor K.D. Swami.
I request Professor Rakhi Gupta to welcome the chief guest of class. Thank you, ma'am. I also request Professor Subhashkar to welcome the guest. Thank you.
Bridge University, Bharatpur. Professor Rakhi Gupta, Registrar, the IIS University. Professor Subhashkar, Dean and Director, Center for Research, Innovation and Training. Professor K.S. Sharma, Chief Advisor. Professor M.K. Sharma, Dean, Faculty of Commerce. Professor N.K. Jain, Dean, Faculty of Arts. Professor Ravindra Vinayak, participating delegates and guests in the audience. On behalf of the IIS University, it is my proud privilege to welcome Professor K.D. Swami. I would like to express my deep gratitude to Professor K.D. Swami for acceding to a request to deliver the valedictory address. Over the last 2 days, we have had deep insights into several issues related to women empowerment and inclusive growth. Each of the technical sessions have added tremendous value to our academic venture of such scale and magnitude, has given an additional flip to our ongoing quest for excellence. We look forward to your valedictory address, sir, and I once again welcome you all to this valedictory session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I request Dr. Rupam Kothari, Organizing Secretary of the seminar, to kindly apprise the audience.
Women constitutes around 50% of India's population, and we have now realized the fact that inclusive growth is not possible without empowering women. Following the university's motto of preparing the world ready women, the Center for Research, Innovation and Training, the IIS University Jaipur, organized a 2-day national seminar on women empowerment and inclusive growth, sponsored by ICSSR from 13th to 14th March 2015. Objective of the seminar was to ignite the deliberations for bridging the gap between the regulations and the ground reality of the position of women in Indian society, to discuss the role of women in India's inclusive growth, to discuss the issues to be tackled to streamline the existing programs on women empowerment. In all, 150 participants registered for the seminar. Various issues related to women empowerment and inclusive growth were discussed over 6 technical sessions over the period of 2 days. 4 sessions were devoted to panel discussions and 2 sessions were kept for paper presentations. In all, 64 papers were received and presented in the seminar by the participants from different parts of India. Inaugural session commenced with lamp lighting and welcome address by Dr. Ashok Gupta, Honorable Vice Chancellor, the IIS University Jaipur. The session was graced by Shri Rajeshwar Singh Ji, Principal Secretary, Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Gaupalan Department, MD RCDF Jaipur, who delivered the inaugural address. Dr. Subhash Garg, Dean and Director CRIT, the IIS University, acquainted the August gathering with the aims and objectives of the seminar, as well as the activities of CRIT. Dr. Rakhi Gupta, Registrar, the IIS University Jaipur, proposed a vote of thanks. Eminent academicians, activists and experts from Media Live, Professor Pramila Batra, Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, MD University Rohtak, Professor Shamim Modi, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, Professor Urmila Sharma, Dean Maharaja Group of Colleges, Udaipur, Professor Ravindra Vinayak, Dean Academic Affairs, Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak, Professor Nirupama Prakash, Director, Amity Institute of Social Sciences, Amity University, Noida, Dr. Ritu Diwan, former Director, Economics and Gender Cell, University of Mumbai, Dr. Manjula Jagat Ramka, Director, Veterna, Dr. Meena Sharma, Editor and Primetime Anchor, Focus News Network, New Delhi, Professor Satish Rai, Mahatma Gandhi Kashi Vidyapeeth, Varanasi, Professor Asha Kaushik, Professor H.S. Sharma, Professor N.D. Mathur and Professor T.N. Mathur from Rajasthan University, Jaipur, Professor Kanchan Mathur, Institute of Development Studies, Jaipur, Professor Rupa Mathur and Professor Nisha Yadav from IIS University, Jaipur, were the resource persons for various technical sessions. These experts apprised the participants on various issues pertaining to women empowerment through their expert talks. The experts and the paper presenters have set a platform for deliberations that would result in identifying some concrete solution to the various problems and issues raised during the course of discussions and presentations. It was a learning experience for all. The contributions of various resource persons and the paper presenters were invaluable and of immense intellectual significance. Thank you.
Happy to inform you that the two best papers have been selected for each technical session. Best paper for Indian economy and women empowerment was of Mr. Prakash R. Kadakor from Karnataka. And second best paper in the second technical session, Women Empowerment, Constitutional, Legal and Judicial Measures and Policy Options. The best award is Dr. Shri Mishra. She is also, she or he? She is, yeah. Shri Mishra. She is also from Karnataka. I commend you. First of all, Mr. Prakash R. Kadakor. Really have to be both award goes.
The same university and the same
Nice, no.
psychiatrist at Limas. So, yeah, and he's also from.
Dr. Subhash Garg, Registrar of the University, and all of the ladies sitting on the DS, and professors who have come over here to participate in the seminar, guests, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students. It's a matter of great privilege to come over here and deliver the valedictory lecture. In fact, when Dr. Subhash Garg, my schedule was very tight in north, but when he extended me the invitation, I had no option, no choice, except to get completely cornered by him.
Thank you, sir.
Therefore I am here. But when I entered this campus, I really feel happy and elated looking to the beauty of the campus, grandeur of the campus, and I hope that the quality of education must be in correspondence with the glamour of the university. The other day, few days back, I was at Sonipat delivering a lecture to the students of Jindal Institute. That is also an equally good, if not very good building, very good institution. But in case of education, it is the teacher and taught which matter the most. So I hope, I believe, and I am fully confident that the quality of education being imparted over here must be very high. And I congratulate both the persons who have been awarded for their best papers, and it seems that Karnataka is ruling the roost. And actually, when Dr. Garg asked me that it is seminar on inclusive growth, then I got some interest in the topic, particularly because of the reason that with new government, the thinking has changed entirely. So, in the process of my lecture, I would like to let you know what is the current thinking going on and what is the place of inclusive growth in the current thinking. Because altogether, the perception, thinking, and the process of development is going to change in India. Actually, to begin with, let me define the inclusive growth, or let me give its meaning. The growth aimed at would be more inclusive, meaning that as many people as possible should be brought within its ambit. The poorest of the poor must also be brought into the ambit of the growth. And all sections of the society, including women, laborer, and the man in the street, if everybody, the poorest of the poor, and the layman feels that he has benefited from growth, then the growth is known as inclusive growth. In India, as far as inclusive growth is concerned, we must immediately concentrate on agricultural sector, because without concentrating on agricultural sector, you just can't imagine of inclusive growth in the country. And also, perhaps only a few of you must be knowing that that sector too is being dominated by the women, and women are the greatest sufferers in the agricultural sector. So I shall dwell upon this sector also to some extent. In India, there is large number of small and marginal farmers, and around 83% of the farmers cultivate land holdings of less than 2 hectares only. 83%, it is very high percentage. So they are all small farmers, marginal farmers. And as far as women is concerned, they constitute 50% of the Indian farmers. Among these small and marginal farmers, women actually when we live in city life, we forget about the women who are working on in agricultural sector. But they constitute 50% of Indian farmers and about 60% of the agricultural workforce. So when you ask me about the inclusive growth and empowerment of women, I would directly say that what are you doing for this 60% of the agricultural labor and 50% of the women that is in the farming sector. So for that we shall have to make actually special efforts, and our previous government was paying lot of attention to this inclusive growth, and in our plans also inclusive growth, more inclusive growth was the main target which was highlighted in successive plans. Now what this government is doing is that you must have read in the newspapers that a few days back top-notch economists of the world gathered in New Delhi. The Economic Times Global Business Summit held in New Delhi in the mid of the January. And over those economists, Professor Jagdish Bhagwati, very, very eminent professor of international economics, a professor of Economics and Law in Columbia University. He is actually the leader. He is such a great economist that his name has figured in the list of prospective Nobel laureates for several times. And I wish that he should get the Nobel Prize. He is very, very eminent. And then Professor Paul Krugman, he also came to New Delhi with Professor Bhagwati. Krugman is a Nobel laureate, though he is a student of Bhagwati, but he is very eminent and Nobel laureate. Then Professor Abhijit Banerjee, professor from MIT, professor of development economics, he was also there. Then both the Arvinds, Arvind Pangadia, the chairman of the Niti Aayog, who fortunately belongs to this place. He is a student of Jagdish Bhagwati at Columbia University. He is professor on the Jagdish Bhagwati chair in Columbia University. And then also Arvind Subramanian, the chief economic advisor in our government. So, and lot of businessmen and other politicians, they interacted with each other. And actually the leader was definitely Professor Jagdish Bhagwati. So, I would like to divulge it to you that whenever Indian rupee was depreciated or devalued in the past, the step was never taken without prior consultation with Professor Jagdish Bhagwati. You can imagine how eminent he is. And when there was a lot of controversy between what type of growth should be, then Bhagwati and Pangadia were supporting the Gujarat model of development, whereas Amrita Sen was supporting the Kerala model of development. So now it is Bhagwati and his team which is ruling the roost about economic policy. As far as these economists are concerned, their knowledge, their integrity is beyond doubt. They are very, very good. But the question is, what sort of model they are suggesting? Whether it will help in attaining inclusive growth? Here I have my own doubts. I shall let you know what Professor Bhagwati thinks. As an obiter dictum, I can tell you that Indian economy is very, very important economy nowadays. Do you know that it is third largest economy of the world based on the purchasing power parity calculations? There are two ways in which you can calculate GDP, gross domestic product, or national income of an economy, either on the basis of exchange rate, that is rupee dollar exchange rate or whatever it is, or alternatively on the basis of purchasing power parity exchange rate. So the developed countries nowadays like to compute national income or GDP with the help of purchasing power parity exchange rate. So on the basis of purchasing power parity exchange rate, Indian economy today is the third largest economy of the world, next only to US and China. It has left behind Japan. But mind it, it is purchasing power parity exchange rate calculation, not the nominal exchange rate calculation. So it is very important economy. We are also expecting higher rate of growth. IMF and World Bank are predicting that rate of growth would be around 6.3% in the coming years. That is quite okay, because you know the term Hindu rate of growth, which was given by Professor Raj Krishna, who was here in Rajasthan University, professor and head of the department. And he found that from 50, 51 onwards till 80, 85, the rate of growth was never more than 3.5%. So the term 3.5% rate of growth was termed as Hindu rate of growth by Professor Raj Krishna. But now the times have changed, and during some years we attained even double-digit rate of growth, which is rare in case of many economies. And some people also believe that in the coming years India may take over China as far as the rate of growth is concerned. So the picture is quite rosy for Indian future. But Professor Bhagwati's strategy for development is something like this. He says that efficiency and growth must be enhanced by unfinished economic reforms. Economic reforms have economic reforms have not fully taken place in Indian economy. So Bhagwati has recently suggested, and it is his strategy for growth of the Indian economy, that economic reforms must be speeded up and unfinished economic reforms must be attained so that the rate of growth and efficiency will rise in the Indian economy, number one. Number two, actually Bhagwati believes that higher rate of economic growth is sine qua non for all sorts of economic evils. That is, poverty, unemployment and everything would automatically be removed if rate of growth is higher. This is the belief of Professor, belief and conviction and suggestion of Professor Jagdish Bhagwati. And in the coming years, India is going to adopt this strategy. So first of all, higher rate of growth. And he argues that if rate of growth is higher, then first of all, people would automatically get employment in various industries which would start with higher rate of growth. Secondly, with higher rate of growth, more revenue will go to the coffers of the government. Consequently, that revenue would be spent on social sector activities like schooling, health and other sectors. So higher rate of growth would bring greater revenue to the government also. Then he said that social engineering would be there to enhance returns on these expenditures and returns on these investments. And finally he suggests that with higher rate of growth, we must have some sort of collaboration with various types of NGOs, because NGOs have the necessary experience and micro level knowledge, field knowledge, whereas government has the resources. So their role is complementary. So NGOs must be also there to help us. So in brief, I would like to say that he is suggesting the model of market economy. All sorts of interventions and other things must be done away with. Public sector must be gradually done away with. This is his thinking, and the present Indian government is going to adopt this strategy of growth. Now, coming back to the inclusive growth, will it help the poorest strata of the population? Would this growth provide more employment? Lot of unemployment is there in our economy. And the answer to this question is that this strategy presumes, based on the premise that employment would be a byproduct or an adjunct to the process of growth, which has not proved true, or this is known as trickle-down theory, that benefits of growth would automatically trickle down to the poorest strata of the population. But actually in past, in our country, as well as in several other countries, the trickle-down theory has failed miserably. So from this sort of a strategy, I am not very hopeful that inclusive growth would take place and benefits would automatically percolate to the poor strata of the population. So this sort of thinking is there going on. So we should not be very hopeful for inclusive growth. If this model is adopted, this is actually market economy. Well, they are arguing, and they are right in their argument, that market economy is most efficient. Efficiency would increase, there is no doubt about it. But the important question is, market economy is irrelevant for those who cannot join the market. The population which is living below poverty line, which are incapable of taking benefits of the growth process, they would be left out, and market economy would not be much useful for those people. So in the coming years, it is not going, if this model is adopted, which is likely to be adopted, then it is not going to be very much inclusive growth in the coming years. Now, what sort of do I have from the Indian economy in the context of the world economy? Actually, the demographic dividend, the young people who are sitting over here. India, the only hope for India is to reap the advantages of demographic dividend. In India, actually, between 2010 and 2020, around 120 million would be added to the working population up to 2020, whereas China would add only 19 million against India. China would add only 19 million to the working population, whereas India 120 million, 120 million. Similarly, from 2020 to 30 period, India will add 100 million more to the working population, whereas China's working age population will decline by 62 million. So in coming future, India would be the only country which would supply manpower to the world as a whole. Now, in coming years, say up to 2040, 65% of Indian population would be working age population. This is a great advantage. So this is known as demographic advantage, and demographic advantage is the main hope for the Indian economy. But for reaping this advantage, we must be well prepared. The young generation which is studying here must have some talent, some skill, some other sort of quality due to which they can get a job. So here we come to this sector, education sector. The problem of education sector is great. Actually, in India, only 12% of the college-going students are only 12%, whereas world average is 24%. Only half of the world average is in colleges and universities in India. Moreover, the quality of our teaching. The three challenges of education are excellence and accessibility and also expansion. These are the three challenges of education in India. As far as excellence is concerned, you will wonder that most of our college and university students are not employable. They are not fit for employment. The reason is that neither do they have any skill with them, nor they have command of the language, and nor general knowledge. If nothing of these is with the student, then how can he get employment? Only literacy rate has increased. So immediately we must make efforts. Perhaps this institution is providing excellent education, I believe so. So excellence in education is must for reaping this demographic dividend. Secondly, the accessibility. Institutions like this one are not accessible to the poor people of the village level. So there must be so many other government schools in the rural area. Instead of closing the schools and colleges, which is being done today, they must open
as well as the university.
As well as the university, they must open more and more university so that it would become accessible to the poorest strata of the population. That would be the inclusive growth. And finally, the expansion. Lot of expansion is needed. Accessibility, expansion and excellence. These three factors must be given most important if we want to reap the demographic dividend. In case we don't do anything in this regard, then demographic dividend is going to become a drag on the Indian economy. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir K.D. Swami. Thank you, ma'am, sir. I now request Ms. Chanda Asani, Coordinator Women's Cell, the IS University, to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Professor K.D. Swami, Professor Rakhi Gupta, Professor Subhash Garg, Professor N.K. Sharma, Professor L.K. Sharma, Professor N.K. Jain, dignitaries of the dais, delegates, research scholars and participants in the audience. It is my proud privilege to propose a formal vote of thanks on behalf of the IS University in this two-day ICSSR sponsored seminar for women's empowerment and inclusive growth. I'd like to express sincere gratitude to Professor K.D. Swami for the valedictory address. Thank you, sir, for your presence and insights. I'm thankful to all invited speakers for taking time out of their busy schedule to be here and address the contemporary issues in relation to women's empowerment and inclusive growth. The smooth conduct of the event would not have been possible without the team spirit of all the faculty members, student volunteers, research scholars, the technical and support staff, and of course the unstinted support and invaluable guidance throughout of Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Ashok Gupta and our Registrar Professor Rakhi Gupta. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. May I take this opportunity to convey thanks to Professor Subhash Garg, Dean and Director of GRIT, for the help and support in all areas of functioning of the seminar. Lastly, I thank all the media persons whose ample coverage of the seminar will bring this contemporary issue closer to the public interest and notice. Thank you all once again.
Thanks to the delegates. Without their participation,
I
it
said
would
that
not
in
be
the beginning. Yeah, I did say that.
Thank you, ma'am.